Request. I'm so sorry. I don't know who was here first. I do remember Everton in the comments, so I think we're gonna go with Everton, then Renegade, then OBS, and um, I think Keep America, and then Camla next. I'm so sorry if that's the wrong order, but that's what we'll go with. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Good, good. Are you over 18?
Yes, 2006 of December 10th.
Perfect. And are you a Christian?
Yes, I am Catholic.
All right, fantastic. How long have you been a Christian for?
All my life.
All your life. All
When
right,
I was
excellent.
born, yeah.
And what on the background would you like to talk about?
I would like to talk about LGBTQ. Now,
Okay.
see, since we're in different countries, I don't know how it works in the US, but in Ireland, it's considered a bad thing because because it's 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 not anything you would see in the country for the past I don't know 10 years. But people started coming up with like the LGBTQ when they saw it over in the US, and they formed this tribe, and my aunt, her daughter, is transgender. Well, yeah, she's transgender, and I see the stuff that she's on. It is not healthy. I don't think it's healthy because you're putting a bunch of chemicals like testosterone into your body, and I just think
Well,
that.
you know that testosterone is a natural
No, I know that, but
chemical
like,
that is done in our biological bodies naturally, right? So we
yeah,
can't say that we're adding harmful chemicals because we're just it's literally what your body also makes. Both biological men and women have both estrogen and testosterone naturally inside them,
no,
just different levels.
I know that, but like to make her a man, that's what I'm saying. She shouldn't be changing her gender.
Why not? What's wrong with someone saying, "Hey, this is the way that I feel most like me and the most comfortable, and this is the way that I can live my best life." What's wrong with them doing that?
Because now, see, this is where the Catholic me is going to come in. God put you in the body that He wanted you to be in, and He put you there for a reason. He didn't. He didn't just put you in there because it was a flip the coin or He just wanted to, like. And I believe that if you were born as a girl, you should die as a girl. If you're born as a boy, you stay as a boy. You die as a boy.
Well, again, these are gender terms. So one could be born male and be a girl and will live their life as a girl and die as a girl. In which the case, you and I are agreed. They were a girl. They should be a girl. Just because their biological sex says male should not determine that. But I do want to point at one thing you said earlier about, that they just started appearing within the last 10 years. You know that LGBT people have existed all throughout human history across multiple cultures, right?
Oh, I know that, but
So then they didn't just start appearing in the last 10 years or anything
well,
like
it,
that,
it
or get more
became
and
it
more
be,
quote unquote popular.
it became more of a thing. Like it became more. I don't know. I wouldn't say popular. Like
It became safer for people to
yeah,
say that
exactly.
they. So what's wrong with it being safer now for people to say, "Hey, I'm not straight"? Why is that a
Like
bad thing?
how can we if how can a male and a male make a child? How can we reproduce? Like,
So it's wrong if there's no reproduction. Is that where you're going to now?
yeah, because how we supposed to live on this world if there's no reproduction and there's like.
But you do realize that reproduction itself does not make the action or the sex good or bad, right?
Yeah, I know that.
So then I don't understand what this is. Why you're bringing it up for this at all? Just because two men can't reproduce does not make it wrong. In the way that a 30-year-old man sleeping with a 12-year-old girl and getting her pregnant does not make that right. Just
No.
because reproduction is in one but not the other doesn't have anything to do with whether they're right or wrong.
But in now this is I hate when I do this because it's religion and people most hate the Catholic religion. But in the eyes of the Lord, that is wrong. And to go to what you said about the 12-year-old girl being raped or shit or
No, it's okay. We can just go on.
it's I know it's a bad action, and that person will, if you believe it or not, he will go to hell. And see, it's a different.
I mean, historically, Mary was anywhere between 12 and 15 when she got pregnant with Jesus. So, do you think that God should be put in jail too for getting a young girl like that pregnant?
Well, no. First, there were plenty of people getting pregnant at the age of 12. You can go back to William Shakespeare.
Oh, I agree.
Like
That doesn't mean that it was right, though.
he
Right?
he was a father at 18.
I agree that across history, young children have had kids, but that doesn't mean that it was right. Correct?
Yeah,
That doesn't mean that their biology handled it well. That doesn't mean that it wasn't painful for them or caused lifelong complications because they were children that were having to have children.
oh I, and oh, what was I gonna say? It went out of my head. Oh, what about God had planned for Mary to carry Jesus, and she was born without original sin. So that would make her pure. And just like Jesus, he was pure.
So if the child hasn't sinned, you can impregnate them at 18, or I'm sorry, at 12.
No, no.
So,
But it was
but
just immaculate conception. God, I don't know. It was God's plan. I can't tell you why it was his plan for her to carry Jesus. I can't tell you that.
no, I 100% agree, and I'm not asking you to tell me that. I'm saying that if we're going to be consistent with our logic and say that if you impregnate a 12-year-old child, you should go to jail because that's wrong, but we all of a sudden excuse it when God impregnates a child. It doesn't make sense to me to just suddenly be inconsistent and say, yeah, but that's God and he planned it, like, so what?
Well, I see where you're going with that. But to be honest, I don't know. I don't know what.
That's a fair answer. Don't worry. Let me ask you this though, because you did say this. You said that according to your view and your belief, God sees this as as an abomination, as wrong. Can you tell me why it's wrong? Because I don't see any good valid reason why even God should be so against two men or two women being together.
So the reason why woman and female and male were made was to complement each other, and they had their own unique body features, everything. They're unique. That's why he. That's why he made us different to each other, which make
Don't you think that two men can complement each other very well? Or what about one man and one very androgynous looking woman? So you can't really tell just looking at them if they're a man or a woman. I've seen lots of couples like that are androgynous. That man, I don't know, but you know what? They look really great together, and they complement each other very well. So I think very clearly that's not just a straight couple thing. That's just if you're that type of couple. It could be two men, two women. It could be a man or a woman. I don't see how just because God wanted men and women to complement each other, and yet we see other couples that also complement each other, that means that the other couples are wrong.
Well, they're not wrong. It's just, see, it's hot. It's hot. You. How would I word this now? It wouldn't. It just, in God's eyes, it wouldn't be right. It's just. How would I word this now? How would I word this? Oh, it's gone out of my head. What was I gonna say? Here, ask me something else, because it'll come back to me.
Well, how about this? I have one mutual that wants to ask you one specific question, so I'll let him up to ask you that question, and then if you can't remember what you wanted to say after that, we'll go ahead and let you go. You can come back if you remember it, but that way I can then move on to the next guest renegade, okay?
Right.
All right, awesome. Adam, I will go ahead and bring you up so you can ask your question. Let's try to be nice and respectful, and say things calmly. I don't typically have more than one person up at a time anymore, but we'll go ahead and let it happen because I do like people to ask their questions and I like people to have the chance to answer them. So
And if it's rude, I won't be responsible.
Okay, I want to ask, Everton, is there anything that your God has created because God is perfect, right? So could God make mistakes?
No,
Okay, your God can't make mistakes?
God cannot make a mistake.
Okay, I'm intersex. You understand how intersex works? I have a male swingy thing. I had my big old titties chopped off, but I also bleed for 1 week out of a month, every month, right?
Yeah.
So how does that work out, right?
yeah, you said earlier that if you're born a girl, you should die a girl. Born a guy, you should die a guy because God makes no mistakes and makes you as you are. For an intersex person, for someone like Adam, how did God intend Adam to be?
See, God created you as you are, as you were when you were born.
Yeah,
Now,
but I
yeah,
was.
hold on. But you also have free will to make your own decisions.
Everton. I was born this way. Hello? It's not a free will. I was born literally part male and part female. That's what intersex is.
How can you be born that?
It's very because when we're in the womb, right? Every fetus starts off as female.
And your point being?
It has to do with like the
And
flush
yes,
of
like
hormones and all that to the fetus while it's developing.
like gigawatts. Okay, sorry. Intersex is there is all different kind of phenotypes, right? There's XX, there's XY, but somewhere like I'm XXY. And Mittens, yes, I don't think she does. But we'll teach her what intersex is. We'll be respectful. There's all different kinds of intersex, right? You could be a female that you actually have more testosterone. Sometimes women are born with more testosterone than an average male is. And like if you like it is because even you yourself, Everton, you have testosterone in you. That's just a natural thing.
Oh, I know that. Yeah.
So for you, like there is sometimes an average what you call a cisgender person, especially a child, right? That sometimes they have precocious puberty where they need to take these blockers, right? They need to take the blockers so they can stop this precocious puberty because the lowest norm for there's ever been for a precocious puberty in a little girl was about 2 years old.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So, would you agree with that, Everton? Where children, cis children, get things like get hormones like estrogen and testosterone and blockers, helped with them because their body naturally produces too much of one, and that could seriously hurt them in their development. Do you think that we should intercede then?
Yes,
Okay, so
because
then why shouldn't we also intercede with a child who is transgender and says that talks about going through the wrong kind of puberty and how horrible that is for them and how they want to off themselves and things like that? Why should we not take action to try to also medically assist them?
oh, because I
Yeah,
because
because what's really the difference of, like, say, a transgender person getting the bottom surgery that matches like their brain mentality compared to, I don't know, cutting foreskins off of your penis?
it
Because if we were made perfect in God's image, then why do they nip the tip off? Why was that a big thing?
what circumcision?
Yeah, if we were
Yeah.
created
It was
perfectly.
just it was just their culture. That's
Well,
what they did
actually,
when they were
it
born.
wasn't. The circumcision, at least biblically, was a command from God to show the symbolism of the covenant that He made with Abraham and Abraham's descendants.
Yeah,
And Abraham made it I'm sorry, God made it a law for Abraham and his descendants that every male should be circumcised on day 8, including free and non-free people. So even the male servants and stuff were taken and had this happen. So if God wants you to respect your body the way He made it, why would He do something so contradictory and say, I want you to mutilate your genitals and the genitals of your children?
because in the eyes of the Lord, that's what He wanted, and that was just what He wanted. I don't know what you want me to say. Like,
Okay, can you point me to where the Bible says that you cannot be a transgender person then, please?
here, let me find on the iPad there. Oh, here, let me find my phone. Jesus Christ, where's my phone? Oh,
And,
jeez.
thank you, Adam, for your time. I am going
And
to
I
send you
have
back down
I
now
have one
because I do want
question.
to. For Adam?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I'll let you ask your question for Adam, but I do want to get to our next guest soonish. So I want to finish up with Everton, but I'll let you ask your question to Adam first.
Do you think we should be teaching LGBTQ in school?
Yes, I think so because obviously you don't understand what intersex is because I had to sit here and I didn't even explain all of intersex to you. And just because you are a physically straight person, but that's your religion, right? There's plenty of, like, sometimes there's gay people out there, right? And it's a lot easier if you for like you because we don't teach that when you're a little kid. We don't physically. They don't teach that when you're in kindergarten. They just tell you that there's, like, some kids have like two dads or some kids have two moms, right? Not everybody's just sitting there. What you think is a base morality of just because your religion tells you that, which it doesn't, because look at Lot and his daughters, right? Lot's daughters slept with their own dad. Your whole book is based off of, like, Adam and Eve and populating all of population, which is Adam and Eve. And if Eve was the only woman, right, that means there was a lot of incest going on between, like, their sons and their mother, right? And not just once, but twice in your own because Noah's Ark, right? That means that they would have had to, get it on family style. So what do you think? That, like, in you like your whole religion's okay with incest, but they're not okay with just, like, a guy liking another guy or a female liking another female, or a person like a person, like, their brain tells them, it's even in their brain chemistry, that, like, they might be a female in their brain, right? But their body says male. Because when they went from, like, the beginning ages of a zygote, only portion of them, like, they're physically changed to a male, right? But their brain still stayed a female. And this is the stuff they teach you later on, right? It isn't until, like, you learn the very basic of, like, just two moms and two dads when you're a child, right? We don't sit there and try and tell them about the ins and outs and try and transform their body. They don't. And anybody that says that is kind of being over ridiculous.
No, because in Ireland, I don't know how this in the US, but they are trying to teach little children about sex,
No,
about
they're not.
reproduction. They are.
No, they're not.
I.
I'm not from the States either. And you're not. They're not. I have
They
friends in
are.
Ireland. No, they're not.
They are.
They're not.
I.
You are straight up lying right now. I don't know who
All
you've
right.
heard that from, Everton, but that's a straight up lie. I have actually friends that live in Ireland.
I'm in Ireland. I'm in fucking.
Yes. And I'm
I.
telling you that they're
All
not.
right, but before we jump into this down spiral here of yes they are, no they aren't. Yes, Adam, thank you so much for your
No
time,
problem.
and you brought up such great points, especially with intersex and how the Bible sees things like that. So, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
No problem.
So that was Adam. Great guy to get some more information out of. I would recommend giving him a follow. And Everton, I do want to move on to our next guest soon, but I do want to give you and I the chance to finish up the conversation. Do you think that now you see some value in actually giving education to kids in school? Because as Adam pointed out, you as an adult did not know what intersex was. This is something that they would teach the kids at school and say that this is a fact of reality and biology, that some people are born like this.
Maybe. Maybe.
Sure, and like do you think that as long as the curriculum were to not do anything of like you should be gay, you should be straight, you should be whatever, and is simply like, hey, the facts of life and reality are there are some people that are born this way, some people that identify this way, and this is what these terms mean, and that's it. Don't you think that that's something very valuable that kids should learn while growing up in the culture that holds this as day-to-day lives? Because once they graduate, if they've been sheltered from this their whole lives by their parents and by the school, and then they go out into the world and they meet their first gay person, their first intersex person, their entire sense of reality is going to be taking a huge hit, and I think that that is only a disservice to them. It's only going to stunt their growth and maturity, and I think we have a duty to the next generation to try to give them as much valid information as we can, you know?
Yeah. But they shouldn't teach it at like a level like what's first year primary school in US.
You think it should be age appropriate, right?
Yes, it should be.
So do I. I think if we're talking to kindergartners and first graders, I don't even think sexuality should come up at all. I think it should very simply just be, like good touch and bad touch. I think that's what the sex ed should be for children of that age. I think it should just be simply learning, like if you feel unsafe around these certain adults, or if you're touched in this kind of way, these are the appropriate terms and language that you can use to tell somebody, to tell a trusted adult what happened to you or how you're feeling around another adult, and then actions can be taken to ensure your safety or, to prevent further harm from happening. I think that, it should be age appropriate, but I think that that's one of the first things that should be taught to children is that their voice matters and that they should be given the proper vocabulary to communicate if something happens to them. But I think that, as they grow, once we reach to 11, 12 years old, where kids start to understand, oh, my quote-unquote best friend, I think I actually have like a crush on them. Like that guy, I think I actually like them in a different way. That girl, I think I like her in a different way. When they start getting all their flush of hormones started, their puberty going, and they're starting to have all these actual crushes and interests, we have to understand that it is a fact of reality that some of these kids are not going to be straight. And I think that they deserve just as much education and proper information as the straight kids do when it comes to sexual education. They should be able to receive the same amount of valid information. They should feel comfortable enough to go to their teachers and say, I have a question about something you said in class. Can you tell me more about XYZ? And once they reach high school, yeah, they should definitely go more into how to practice safe sex and how to do things like that, because while it should be stressed that kids should not engage in sex because, it's they're children, and, the mentality of decision making is not quite as strong as when you're a fully finished brained adult, that we do understand it is also a fact of reality that kids will have sex with each other. And so it is our job as the parents and our job as the adults in the community to ensure that they have all the resources and information they need, that if they decide to do this with each other, that they can practice it safely so that both of them will be protected in the future. Don't you agree?
Yes, but I do agree with you saying that teaching them about if somebody touches them inappropriately or something along those lines, that how they should react and stuff like that. I do 110% agree with that. But what
Okay.
I don't agree with a 7-year-old changing their gender at that age, or changing the way they want to act or to be, because they haven't experienced enough life yet.
Do you think you need to experience life to know if you're a man or a woman?
I think
Like if
I
a little
think they
girl
should.
like if a little girl comes up to you and says, "I'm a girl," are you gonna be like, "Oh, honey, you haven't lived enough life yet to know that, and you shouldn't say that yet," or are you only saying that if there's a trans child around because it just gives you the ick?
No, I have nothing against people like that. It's just they don't know what their body does. I'd say, well, if you're a girl, then you're a girl. And if a transgender came, or a transgender, or not transgender yet, if a boy said, I'm a girl, then I'd say, okay, just to agree with them. And usually they forget it. I forgot most of the things I said, well, to my mother and father when I was like 7. Like, and that's just that's just it.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for your time. I hope that, at the very least, I hope that you understand where I'm coming from in my position. I think that
Yeah.
you've done a pretty solid job with explaining your position as best as you can, and I want to thank you for coming up and doing that.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
And I just want to say one thing. Um, if anyone, um, when Jesus, can I just say this? Just can I preach or not?
I will give you 45 seconds to say whatever you'd like.
So don't, if you want to get a relationship with Jesus, you can start at 24 off 74. As long as you make a relationship with him, you can go to heaven. Now, if you don't, then just don't expect him to come arms in loving you. And he doesn't know you. Now, I'd like to thank you for having me up here, and it's actually been a real pleasure to talk to you all. And to be honest, I hope to come to the States one day. I haven't been actually.
Oh, well, I mean, hopefully one day you can. It'd be super cool. Is there anywhere specifically in the States you'd like to see? You
I
want to see like
I
New
like to
York
go.
or California or something like that, or
I like to go to Times Square.
yeah.
My uncle, he lives in Chicago, and he's he can't come home because of immigration issues, and I haven't seen him in 10 years. The last time I saw him was when I was 8.
Well, I hope that situation fixes itself, and I do hope that you get to make it out here to the States at some point. I've been to Times Square once, and it was great. I hope you get to experience it.
Yeah,
All right. Have a wonderful rest of your day, Everton.
thank you. Right, bye bye, bye bye, bye bye.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. That was a guest, Everton, who came up wanted to discuss number 4 on here of LGBT plus. Is it wrong? Why? She shared her perspective as a Catholic. She couldn't exactly, it seems, to answer why God thinks it's wrong, other than a purpose of reproduction. But I think I gave my point as to why I don't see reproduction as valid to the judgment of right or wrong in this case. But yeah, I'll be posting this on my YouTube, The Atheistic Preacher, if you want to check out the full lives afterwards. I don't record any of the BS at the beginning or the end of me just talking until people show up. I just record the conversations themselves, and I think it's good because if you want to go back and you want to hear what you said, what someone else said, and take some notes or try to get a proper reference, so that you can go and do your own study even more in depth. That at least that's my hope that people will use these recordings for. Then that's great. So if you want to give me a follow on YouTube, The Atheistic Preacher, and I hope to have some more stuff for you, even if they take away TikTok here in the next bit or so. Hey man, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Hey, not too bad, not too bad. Yeah, thank you so much for chilling, for waiting. I appreciate it.
Yeah, just a tough listen. I'll put it like that.
Yeah, I'm sure you would have some thoughts. Did you wanna continue with 4, or did you wanna go to something else?
Interesting. Uh, I guess your position is that you reject the worldview of slavery in the Bible, and you would be specifically referencing the Torah as your prime notion, right?
I think that we can point to both the Old and the New Testament to show that slavery was at the very least allowed and okayed.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that majority of when it comes to the law that God gave, that yeah, we find that in the Old Testament.
Interesting. So, by what standard are you judging the concepts of slavery by? Modern, more liberal understanding, or the ancient term?
As far as what my definition for it is,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that so when I say slavery, I'm talking about the act or practice of people owning people as property.
Mhm. And you find in all
So when
cases
it comes
that's
to
good.
yeah, and I mean that as actual property. I'm not talking about contracts or agreements between individuals. I'm not talking about I want to serve in the military, and so I take on this label as property of the government or whatever. I'm talking about people who are legally recognized as objects and owned by other people and don't have as much protections or rights as the rest of the population, if any at all.
And you believe the Bible and this Torah specifically exemplifies that definition.
Yes, I think we can find that type of slavery in the Torah.
Okay. What verses?
I think that the most glaring one is in Leviticus 25:44 through 46,
Hmm.
which talks about the people of Israel being allowed to go to other nations and acquire slaves, and the Bible goes on in Deuteronomy 20 and I believe Numbers 31 and other passages like
Which
that of
passage in
how you
Leviticus?
can obtain
Hold
those
on a second.
slaves.
Hold on.
Leviticus 25,
Yeah,
44 through
Leviticus
46.
44 through 46. Let me just go there.
Yeah,
Want my
yeah.
Torah. 25, 44. It's 45 to 46, correct?
44 through 46.
Okay. Take a look here. Okay, cool. You may buy your male and female slaves are to come from the nations around you. From them you may buy slaves. You may also buy some of the temporary residents living among you and members of their clans born in your country, and they will become your property. You bequeath them to your children as inherited property, and you can make them slaves for life, but you must not rule over your fellow Israelites ruthlessly. Understood, right? So
Yeah,
the
I
key
think that's the
passage,
most direct
yeah,
passage that we can look at for this.
sure. So the key passage in this, right? According to historicity, do we find that the Israelites were going out to the land of, let's say, Amalek or the Hittites and going out similar to how people would use modern slavery and buying these people and capturing them and subjugating them?
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question? I was flipping to the verse myself because I wanted to.
Right. Yeah,
happens.
because this is permeating the idea to buy slaves, right? So they're also it's identifying that in the context of already of being a slave, right?
I
They're not free men.
So I my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that
Uh-huh.
while the word for that you're using for buy does mean to acquire. One could see that as purchasing. One could also see that like as we see in Deuteronomy 20 and how they can enslave people of other places once they take
No,
over the cities.
that's not the standard. So for example, like
Okay.
if yeah, because we've never and you'd have to show a
So
passage. Hold on, real quick. You'd have to demonstrate a passage that entails that God's sovereignty was supposed to be anywhere outside of Israel. That's not the theme of the Torah. The theme
I
of the
don't
Torah.
wait. I don't know how what I said means that God's authority had to be recognized outside of Israel.
No, so what I'm saying is this, like when we look at the passages in which you brought forth, you're presenting the argument as if the Israelites, as acquired to like modern, like let's say like the transatlantic slave trade, that people were going out hunting for these specific people to bring them into the fold of Israel unbeknownst to their will. Remember, so most contracts, right? And then this is why I guess why you made the argument before is because I guess you wanted to nullify where I could go to passages which identify that a person would have to agree to be within the contract of the covenant in itself. So this is giving permission to buy people and it identifies them as slaves already. They're not free people. They're not free. It doesn't say you may go buy or acquire people that are free men who
Yeah,
have
I have nothing against the position that this is also talking about being able to go and purchase other slaves from other places.
okay, right. But
Yeah,
you
I'm fine with
acknowledge
that.
that the passage is not referring to free men.
No, because you're enslaving them.
No, that's not what it says. They have already been identified as slaves throughout the passages, and this is not the only passage that identifies that. Exodus 21, 2 to 6, Deuteronomy 23, verses 15 to 16, identifies the people in which you could potentially acquire have already been identified as slaves. It doesn't say you may go and then purchase and find a freeman and then make him a slave, because then you would be proposing that this is somewhat identical to the transatlantic slave trade, where people have gone out on escapades and looked for human beings and decided to subjugate them.
Right. So two things. One, yes, I think that we can isolate 100% this passage, and it'll still make my point of this is solely talking about buying people that are already seen as slaves. Cool, that's fine. But I think again, if you look at other passages like Deuteronomy
Well,
20,
wait,
where
hold on.
God is
Let's
giving the rules
reconcile
of
that
war,
though.
hold on. Let me just make the second point real quick. We see that God allows His people to go to make war, declare war against a place, besiege it, and if God gives them into Israel's hands, they can then make the town their forced labor, so they're slaves, or if they don't surrender, they'll off all the men and then continue to take everything else, all the men,
No,
children,
so that's
and plunder
no,
otherwise.
no,
So we see
no.
that even if you want to isolate this passage to just mean we're buying former slaves, I still don't see how that takes away from my original point. But even if you want to
I'll
do
show you.
that,
I'll show you
then
why.
I think that we would also have to agree that we can also see that there are times where you can acquire slaves as an ancient Hebrew Israelite by overtaking another town, and if they surrender, they
I'll
are
show
now
you
your
why. I know
slave.
the reason why you're
So
making
we
two
are talking
points.
about taking freed people and also making them
No,
slaves as
it
well.
doesn't state that either. So you're gonna have to demonstrate that passage as well, the same way you demonstrated or try attempted to demonstrate that in Leviticus 25. Because
Yeah, well, we'll
well,
finish Leviticus
hold on.
25 and then we'll
We're
move to
not
Deuteronomy 20.
finished. No, we haven't
No,
finished yet.
I said let's finish
Oh,
25
okay,
and then we'll
okay.
move on to 20.
Yeah. So we've identified, and I just want to ask you these series of questions. So we've identified here in this passage here that these people have been considered slaves even prior to the notion of them being acquired, correct? Because it's identifying them as slaves and not freemen.
I don't have any problem with that
I know, but
interpretation.
I know that, but I'm just saying, is
Yeah,
that what we're reading?
let's go with that.
Okay, cool. So the person is being brought into or acquired into the fold of Israel as a now bondservant, which is why I had asked you earlier with respect to your definition as what a slave would be, because if you're using the more modern interpretation of what a slave would be, and not the ancient interpretation, you would be holding to the fact that this would be likening unto them going to different nations and acquiring people and subjugating them outside of their will. Does this passage state that this is against their will?
The subject doesn't even care about their will,
Okay, can you demonstrate where the subject in this passage does not care about their will?
where it doesn't even address it. If it cared about their will,
Okay,
it would talk about how
okay.
one must agree to it. One
Per,
must. These are very
I'm
specific
I'm
and
glad you
detailed rules because this is
I'm
the
glad.
law code.
Hold on. I'm glad you mentioned
Hold
that.
on,
One,
I
hold
want
on.
to finish my answer
I
real
know, but
quick.
I
I'm
didn't.
like one
I know,
sentence
but I
away.
was. I know,
I'm
but I
like one
was.
sentence
Okay,
away.
go ahead. Go ahead.
If you are giving the laws to your people, they're supposed to be detailed. They're supposed to be direct. God is giving the law to his people. If the consent of the slave mattered, God would have given that in, but it clearly doesn't even
Yeah,
matter.
it did matter. So you clearly went overlooked passages in Shemot where it says that the mixed multitude who were also included by quote unquote slaves of Egypt who were non-Israelites ended up being in covenant with Hashem. And they says that when you read parts in Exodus 24, verse 4, that they answered and they said they all accepted the covenant of God. So in all aspects, when we're dealing with entering within the body of Israel or under the authority of Hashem, you have to acknowledge there is an acknowledgement there. And I can take you to that passage if you just go open up Exodus 24, verse 4. It exemplifies the fact that they have to acknowledge the fact that they're accepting all the standards and the things in which they're going to do as a foreigner or as a citizen or as whatever you want to choose to call it. A person in this passage, which you attempted to exemplify, was proposed as an idea that, they were being held against their will and they were being purchased against their will. And that's not the case. That's not what happens here. So let's go to Exodus 20, verse 4.
So wait a minute. I have nothing against that there were non-Hebrews that were living among them that also surrendered to the culture, the way the rules of God and things like that. There are multiple passages that support that, including supporting them integrating into Israelite customs and cultures, including things like indentured slavery. There were some non-Hebrews that were able to engage with Hebrews and have Hebrew indentured servants. I have nothing against that. That has nothing to do to address the slavery aspect, though.
That does. Because the slavery in which you're referring to is an indentured servitude, so they would be working. So
It's
let me.
not. It's not.
It is. And I'll tell you
No,
why.
because an
Uh,
indentured
what you're
servitude
saying, hold on,
involves
hold,
actual servitude.
hold
They
on,
have more rights than slaves.
hold on. Because what you're doing is you're attempting to compare the Torah slavery to other historical slavery systems. For example, if you look at the Code of Hammurabi, you would know that the slaves were treated as property with few protections, and killing a slave often carried different and minimal penalties. Case in point, transatlantic slave trade, similar thing, based on racial superiority, and we know that it involved like a form of brutal dehumanization and treating of slaves as long life property. Islamic slave trade does the same thing regarding how they
I don't see how this
hold.
doesn't do it too.
No, it doesn't because it actually doesn't identify that one. The people in this context, right, you've already conceded. You said that they're not identified as freemen, meaning that these people have already been in those types of slaveries and bondages from those other nations. Examples that I've given regarding the Code of Hammurabi as an example. So these
Sure,
people are being
but I don't
hold
see
on,
how that
hold
justifies the further
no,
enslavement of
it
them.
justifies the fact that they are now being brought into Israel. And when you stated earlier regarding the token of which identifies a person that is to be treated like a citizen, just like it says in Exodus just chapter 12, verses 38 onwards to 48, that a person will be treated just like a citizen once they circumcise themselves to Israel. So meaning that if a person joins themselves to the nation, regardless of them potentially being brought in as a slave and not a freeman, or which you identified, not being subjugated, and they wanted to participate in some of the festivities of Israel, they would be treated as such. And if you read Exodus 12, verse 38, you would know that.
Yeah, Exodus 12:38 is about baking unleavened cakes and
Yeah.
driving out
No.
lgbt.
I'm going to read it for you. Exodus 12:38. Hang on one second.
I mean, I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, one second. I'm going to read it because it comes here.
A mixed crowd also went up with them, and the livestock in great numbers, both flocks and
Okay,
herds.
perfect. So
That's
that
it.
that mixed multitude that went up with Israel
A
weren't.
great crowd also went up with them. Yes, I understand that just
Okay,
because there were other
hold
people,
on, hold on.
that doesn't mean that they were not allowed to engage in the practice of slavery, even if
No,
they were allowed to go and buy other former slaves and then take them on.
no.
These people were still seen as legal property of the Israelite family forever, which is slavery.
Okay, so Exodus 12, right, says from verses 38 says that a mixed multitude went up out of Egypt, which would have been a multitude of different types of people Who would have been slaves within Egypt under the same subjugation in
Where are
which
you
the
getting that?
Israelites? Oh,
What
historicity.
verse are
Actually,
you getting that?
no, it's not a. It's called historicity.
Okay, so
So
you're adding that to the Bible.
no, it's not an
I have
addition.
nothing.
So hold on.
I want to make this very clear. I want to make this
You're
very clear.
literally
I
interrupting
accept
me.
things. Hold on. I
You're
just want to
literally
clarify this.
interrupting me.
I just want to clarify this, Renegade. Just want to clarify this.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
completely understand and accept your answer from a historical standpoint,
Uh
but I
huh.
think that it contradicts the text, and I don't know how you can make it
Okay. Cool.
not contradict the
Where's the
text. Does that make
contradicting?
sense?
Where's the contradiction in what I said regarding the text? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'm sorry, not contradict. Adding to. I don't know how you're not adding
Oh.
to this when
Okay.
you only when we can say that historically this happened,
Uh
but that
huh.
doesn't make that all of a sudden what the Bible says changes.
No.
The Bible text never says anything about how they were all former slaves
No,
that
in fact,
joined
what it does,
Israel
no,
going away.
in fact, what it does is identify that Israel, just like how there's not Israel, sorry, Egypt, being like you can say like an ancient version of like the modern America today, had a mixed multitude of different people, different cultures, and different ethnicities and religious practices, while still being simultaneously under the Egyptian rule. This is historically accurate. So you saying that this is an
Sure.
addition to, hold on, you saying that this is an addition to the Bible is a moot point because the Bible can appeal in many instances. Just for example, take the one I'm bringing you now to universal historicity. It's not independent. They harmonize with each other. And the reason why I'm showing you this passage in Exodus 12, and if you read all the way to 48, you would have seen it says that a slave that you have bought may eat of it if he is circumcised, meaning the circumcision which you brought up in the previous conversation was a token that a person would be in the covenant of God. Meaning, and if you continue to read, it said that they would be treated like a citizen, and a citizen has equal
Hmm.
rights as anybody else. Now, here's the interesting thing that I think that you've kind of overlooked in your passage that you brought with that Leviticus 20, I think it was 24 or 25. You
44 through 45.
Right, right. So you noticed that these people were not called freemen, they were called slaves. And in doing so, the liberation in which Israel is bringing forth for these people is to be have equality within the body and the authority of Israel. It's very simple.
No.
Okay, so can you demonstrate to
How
me?
can you be equal if you are owned as property by another?
Okay, so this is very simple. Let me explain to you. When somebody's being brought in to a new custom, they have to learn the ways and the customs of that said nation or culture.
Yeah.
It's called an adjustment. So
Sure.
for example, right, when you're brought into even in a company, you're not going to start out as the CEO. You're going to start out as an apprentice. And as the apprentice
Sure.
acquires, one second, as the apprentice acquires new skills and new attributes or whatever it may be in order to fulfill that role, he then earns that position as the CEO. So
Sure.
you're jumping all over the place because this passage doesn't even
How is that
and then
analogous to this?
oh, perfect. Because a person,
Because
so
an
I'll tell you, you
apprentice.
asked me a
Wait,
question.
wait,
You asked me a
wait.
question.
Yes,
You
but
asked me a question.
let me explain.
Okay.
If the apprentice, according to your analogy, if the apprentice enters in, does a good job, works hard, they will eventually go ahead, rise up in their position there, and that's
Hmm.
great. We're talking about somebody who is a slave and will be a slave for the rest of their life, even including being passed on as object inheritance to the next of kin.
Hmm.
That is a completely different situation than, oh, I entered a job and now I get to advance higher up in position in that job. These are not analogous situations.
I'll tell you why it is, right? So a person that is being brought in acknowledges the covenant, the same part when I quoted to you that they all answered in one voice that they would do all the things of the Lord. They didn't answer in a voice that's distinct. It wasn't one group of people that said, "Okay, the slave said that we only accept to one part of the Torah and we object to the other," and the Israelites didn't do anything. They all together accepted everything that came with them. So
Well, it
I'll
doesn't matter
contract
what the
you.
slave
Hold
accepts.
on, hold.
The
It
slave
does.
is a
It
slave.
does. No, it does matter because
It
again,
doesn't.
as I proved and demonstrated before, they were not brought in or acquired into the fold of Israel outside of their will. They actually
You
chose to
have
do
not
so.
demonstrated that.
I
There's
have.
so
I
what you've
have.
demonstrated is that the strangers that went with them from Egypt, that the Bible does not specify if they were slaves or not,
Hmm.
that the strangers that went with them agreed to this. We're
Hmm.
talking about the people that a whole entire book later that
Hmm.
Israel is allowed to go and acquire as slaves, whether by purchasing them or by taking them as prisoners of war.
Hmm.
that has nothing to do with their consent because their consent is not recognized. Their consent is not even acknowledged, and their consent is completely different because it's a completely different group of people than the ones you're referring to in Exodus 12. You cannot say
You've
because the people
conflated
in
two. Hold
Exodus
on, I
12
have to correct you.
consented. I have one more sentence.
Okay,
You
cool.
cannot say that the people in Exodus 12 consented. That means that everyone that was then taken as a slave because of Leviticus
Hmm.
25 also consented.
Yeah, so you're conflating two things. A criminal or a war criminal or an active enemy combatant's not going to be under the same or acted or the same level of adjudication as a civilian. Like, I hope you understand this. Like, when you've already identified that you're an active enemy combatant, there are rules and regulations regarding warfare. This is even something that happens today. So if you're morally against that, I would like to enter into
I'm
that.
not talking about enemy
No,
combatants
no, no, no,
being
no, no, no,
slaves.
no, no, no. Hold on. No, you've identified two categories. You identified the people that would have went into. And remember, this isn't regarding going into the land of Israel on their way to the land of Israel. This isn't them going on a worldwide tour to Africa and then deciding that they want to just take a pit stop in Zimbabwe and say, okay,
Actually,
no,
yeah, it is.
no, it isn't. Actually, the only way.
I can show how it is, but go ahead, finish your point
Yeah,
first.
no, yeah, yeah, finish it. Okay, cool. So, yeah, these people, active combatants and enemies, are going to be treated differently from those that are considered civilians and innocent people. It's very simple. Um, the Leviticus verse that you brought, again, only demonstrates that a person who's already been preconceived as a slave, according to another nation, can be brought into or acquired into the fold of Israel and through time attributed equal rights, the same way Exodus 12:38 all the way through 48 exemplifies by the act of
You will
circumcision.
never have equal rights if you are the property of another citizen.
Okay, so can you deny that the passages that exist in Exodus clearly state that once a person has been circumcised, that they will be treated like a citizen?
Yes, I don't think that just because they had a convert or not have the same rights as we do clause means that it's justified to have slaves.
Okay, Exodus 12:49 refutes you and says that the same law applies both to the native born and to the foreigner residing among you, meaning that God has no partiality in regards to how he views the people that decide that they want to join themselves to his Torah. So what you're stating is that a person, which is why I gave you the example of an apprentice and a person that owns the company.
But that's for
Hold on,
circumcised males.
hold on. And remember, the male is the head of the household. That's also in the Torah, by the way. So the male would be making the decisions for his family and his household. This is just the natural way of things, unless you disagree that maybe the woman should be in charge and a child that hasn't been fully developed in his brain can make sound decisions on behalf of an entire family. Then you
No,
have
I
to
think
make
the
that argument.
adults should work together to do what's best for their offspring.
No, that's not
I
that.
don't think it should be just because I have balls means I get to boss everybody else around and make
Right.
a
So
final
the
say.
Torah doesn't, yeah, so the Torah doesn't exemplify anything in which you promoting by stating that they were held against their will. In fact, when you enter with a contract, you have
I'm saying their will wasn't
can I
taken into
can I can I can,
consideration.
okay. So when you enter within a contract, there are stipulations, terms, and agreements in which a person must acknowledge. The similar passages which I explained to you in Exodus exist, where they said that they answered in one voice and accepted all the rulings that come with the Torah. Very simple. So you would have to demonstrate that these slaves
That's
were.
for the people in
Hold
Exodus
on,
12.
hold on, hold on, hold on. No, the standard is actually being started at the point when they had left Egypt. That's the point. Because the standard now has been set, the rulings are now exemplified, they're also demonstrated, and they're also further explained. And then even, not even to take into consideration, too, that I think you missed was Numbers 11, where it says that righteous men had authority to adjudicate over situations that were considered to be unjust. So it's interesting, right? We see that there are people that are to be acquired who aren't free men, which denotes your worldview that these people would go into specific towns and
It does
capture
not.
innocent, hold on, capture innocent people, right, outside of their will and subjugate them to the laws of the Torah without having them to acknowledge the laws of the Torah. According to the Torah, this would be a false adjudication and the people would have to be stoned to death. Simple.
Cool. It does not go against my view that Israel could not
Mm.
also take those without their consent.
It does. You would
You
have to
hold on,
demonstrate it.
renegade.
Okay, go ahead, go ahead,
Every time I've brought it up, you just say no and you don't let me get there, and I keep trying to get there. Okay, so
Okay, no
I
problem.
have no problem showing you how this also or how my view is also supported through the text, but we are still stuck on this point for Leviticus 25.
Hmm.
I do not see the consent of them being taken into consideration at all. You're saying that just because the people in Exodus 12 consented, that means that all the slaves that were purchased or bought or acquired after Leviticus 25 therefore consented, I think is a ridiculous stretch.
Yeah, and you think it's a ridiculous stretch because you fail to acknowledge that the standard was set because the Torah, right, was already given in Exodus 19, and it was already stated that, um, that these were going to be the rulings regarding how to govern Israel, and they would have had an appointed judication and peoples that had authority over said judgment. So it wasn't this like unrighteous, unjust environment that you're proposing it to be. The reason why I went to historicity to affirm my position is because if we do look at the Code of Hammurabi, right, which would be the Babylonian slavery, and we compare that to what was happening in Israel, we would know that there's a multitude of differences. One being the fact that Israelites or foreigners or i.e. aliens were not to be treated any differently other than themselves. That's very simple. The mixed multitude that
In the
existed.
Code of Hammurabi.
Yeah, if you look up the Code of Hammurabi, it'll exemplify the terms of slavery.
Yeah, I know some of the Code of Hammurabi, not 100%, but I do know that there were different laws and law codes within the ancient Near East that were quite similar to what we find in the Bible. The Bible is not special in their slave laws versus everybody else's slave laws.
It absolutely is, and I'll tell you,
There's some slightly differences between some you know lengths of time between here and there for like indentured servitudes, but like not even in like the Code of Hammurabi and stuff could you just beat a slave for no valid reason.
yeah.
We have instances of people that need to request special permission and show evidence that their slaves stole stuff in order to punish them, to a certain degree and things like that.
Hmm.
So the Bible, yes, while it does acknowledge indentured servitude and slavery and gives some protections depending on, or varying degree depending on which category you fall into,
Hmm.
that doesn't mean that they were somehow more equal rights or better than the rest of the nations around them. They were literally just like the nations around them who believed that their God told them what to do in order to do things that they believed were right. It's
It's a false
no different.
compare. It's a fault. It's a big difference, and I've exemplified that by identifying that the slaves that were treated in the Babylonian law were treated with few protections, and often the times they were being unalived without any penalty. There is a penalty for or adjudication for violating Torah terms and mistreatment of Hebrew slaves and non-Hebrew slaves, i.e., people that would be indentured to you. So
It does give permission. I'm sorry, permission. It does give protections for the indentured servants. It doesn't give that many protections for the non-Hebrew slaves.
no, that's the standard. So like when I explained to you according to Numbers 11 that the judication would be half that was set according to the 70 elders states very clearly that they would have had to deal with the matters that would arise. So meaning that a person that is an alien or a sojourner that decides that they want to join themselves, whether for a time being or for lifetime or however it may be, or a slave, would have a right to voice their opinion in the land of Israel before the Sanhedrin and state their case. This is why we have a
Yeah,
principle
you're
in the
talking about
Torah.
a free person though. You're talking about a free
No, no,
non-Hebrew.
no, because the Hebrews themselves were slaves to God. So once you enter in a
That's
covenant,
metaphorical.
no, hold on. Once you enter into a covenant, you've entered into a contractual obligation and agreement. And
Yeah, I'm not
upon
talking
you,
about that.
hold on. No, we are discussing that because what God's exemplifying, he's setting the standard using his own people to show how to use and deal with other nations, right? So that when they're being brought in, that you're supposed to hold them accountable. It's incumbent upon an individual once they go through the terms and agreements of that contract to adhere to the contract. Now, you think in your worldview that you can sign a contract or acknowledge the terms and conditions and then nullify and break that because you don't like what you don't like something. That's not how this
No,
works.
actually, in my worldview, the way I see that is that the way I see this is that this is a group of people who believe that they are justified by their God's command to go invade and oppress other people, take them without without a consideration of their consent, and force their ideology upon them. And if they don't go along with it, then they don't have the same equal rights as the rest of them, which is a problem. That is oppression. I don't see that as good.
Mm.
I don't see that as just. And I'm wondering how you can.
Yeah, I mean, it's perfectly just to operate and have adjudication and laws, ordinances, and statutes set up, and not only to protect the native, but to protect those that desire to want to be a part of a covenant with God. I think it's interesting
Perfect.
that
I agree,
I
but I
hold on,
don't think
hold on, hold
slavery
on.
goes along with that.
Hold on. Slavery, as you exemplified, it doesn't exist the way that it's being discussed in the Torah,
No, no, no. Wait, wait.
because
Do you remember? Wait, wait. Do you
hold
remember in
on,
the beginning when I
hold
said
on.
slavery
Can
is
I
the act or practice of people owning
hold on?
people as property?
Hold
And did we not just
on.
read the text in the Bible where it
Hold
says that you are
on.
allowed to own
Hold
other people
on.
as property?
Hold
So,
on.
yes, what I'm saying as
Hold
slavery
on.
is definitely supported by the Bible.
Yes,
And for
but
you to say that it isn't is
no.
completely just wrong.
Okay, no, it's you don't have a justification for as to why it's wrong. In fact, you haven't
No, I'm
identified.
saying that you saying
Hold
that
on,
I didn't
hold
say
on,
that is wrong. I'm
hold,
saying you're wrong in that. I'm
hold
not
on.
saying anything about the
Hold,
what we're saying about the text.
okay, fair, fair. But what I'm saying is this: you have not been able to demonstrate for us, the listeners, myself included, where the so-called slaves, right, that aren't a part of Israel yet, that haven't gone through the process of them being joined into Israel, because you agreed with my analogy regarding the apprentice versus the CEO concept, right?
No, I didn't.
The-
I said that it wasn't analogous.
no, it can't be analogous. You actually, well, you didn't really give an explanation as to why it was analogous.
No, I actually did. I explained completely why it's not analogous because the apprentice can advance and actually has equal protections and rights, whereas a slave does not.
Yeah,
And
but
we
I
see that
explained.
here a
Hold on.
slave is a slave and they are in that situation
No,
for life.
I explained that earlier. So, for example, with passages like Exodus 12 verses 49, that you are to be treated as such. You haven't addressed Exodus 12:49.
I actually have addressed Exodus 12 repeatedly, and I think, again, for you to say that I haven't is, I'm not going to say just wrong at this point, is a complete lie.
It's not a lie.
I
Exodus
have
12. Can
addressed.
we?
I have. Yeah. Okay. So go ahead and watch it on my YouTube later. How many
Okay.
times I've addressed it before
Okay,
this
no problem.
point?
So,
Exodus 12. The consent of the
49.
people in Exodus 12 has nothing to do with the consent of the people in Leviticus 25
It
and
does.
after.
So
It does
do
not.
you
Do you
disagree?
think?
Hold on, real
Do
quick.
you
Let me ask
think?
this
Hold on.
question.
Wait. Wait. Real
Hold
quick.
on. No,
If
no, no, no.
someone
Hold on.
consented
Hold on.
for you
Hold on.
40
Hold
years
on.
before you came around to consent to an action yourself, do you think that you should honor that just because some rando 40 years before you said, "Yeah, I consent to that,"
Oh,
and
perfect.
whoever
I'm
comes after me
glad you
consents
asked
to
that
it?
question. I'm glad you asked that question because
Go for it.
because that example doesn't follow because
I
we're dealing.
agree. It
Hold
doesn't
on.
follow. That's my whole point.
Your
What you're
hold
saying
on,
is illogical.
hold on. Your example doesn't follow for the simple fact that it's not a sole agreement for one person. It's an agreement that is incumbent upon anyone to keep if they enter it, they so choose. It's an eternal agreement. So it doesn't matter even today. People take on the agreement today. This is why people you still have Jews and people like Christians that keep
So
Torah.
slavery's okay
So hold
today?
on 1 second, 1 second, please. Right? Yeah, look for the sound bites. So check this out, right? The
No, this
standard
isn't a
that was
soundbite.
set, hold on, real quick.
I'm trying to
Hold
understand
on,
where you're coming from, man.
hold on. The standard was set. Do you agree the standard was set according to Exodus 12, as with the multitude that had left out of Egypt? Yes or no?
Between the people that were actually there, yes.
Okay, so was it made as a people or was it made as individuals? The
It was
standard.
made as individuals.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Demonstrate that now.
I'm sorry. Okay. So you think that biblically, consenting as an
Oh,
individual consents to
that's
everyone in the
not
future?
answering the
Where is that
question.
supported?
The
No,
covenant.
where is that
Hold
supported? If
on.
you believe
The
that
covenant
God
was
knows the
hold.
heart of each individual and will judge each individual based on
Hold
what
on.
they do
Was
and
the
what they
covenant
believe
made?
and what
Hold
they
on.
think, how does that have anything to do
Was
with a communal
perfect
sense
because
of judgment?
I
It has.
perfect,
It's all about individualism. The whole
perfect,
Bible is about individualism.
perfect. But you also negated that the Bible is also discussing a nation too, the theocracy of Israel. And now I'm going to ask you this question because you evaded my question. Where does it state that one sole individual person accepted the Torah, or was it many?
Many individuals.
Okay, so it wasn't just a person that he gave the Torah to,
I
right?
never said it was one person. I said
Okay,
that it was an
perfect.
individual stance.
No, no, no,
Many
no, 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 no.
individuals,
Many individuals
many
as a
individuals
collective. Hold on.
agreed to
Hold
this,
on.
but that doesn't mean that just because an
Exactly.
individual from 40 years ago agreed for themselves means that I am now subject to have to
Right.
follow
Okay.
that.
Now you don't have to follow that. That's the key in this part that you're not addressing. A
Okay,
person
great.
as they say, hold
So
on.
that
One
so that
second.
so
One
so if
second,
we
please.
acknowledge that,
One second. I'm
if
not
we
done.
acknowledge
I'm
that,
not
that means that the
finished.
consent
I
does
am
not
not.
matter.
I'm not fit. It does matter. You haven't demonstrated that. So, like for example, if you don't want to be a part of Israel, you don't have to be a part of Israel. Very simple. You have to demonstrate that the people of Israel went out, captured free men, and then made them slaves according to the Torah. But you can't demonstrate that. You want to know why? Because
Yeah,
it
Deuteronomy
doesn't
20 and in
it doesn't
Numbers, I believe
exist.
31.
Okay, perfect. And it's going to say that the Israelites went and captured free men, correct?
Yes, they enslaved other people of other
No, no, no.
towns.
It's
They were
no, no. Hold
free.
on. My request was specific. Did it state that they went to capture freemen?
They were not slaves before
I
Israel
didn't
came and
ask you
took them
that
as slaves.
question. I'm asking you a
Yeah,
question. Does
so
this
if they were
does the
not
past?
slaves until Israel came and
I'm
took them
gonna
and made them
we're
slaves,
gonna go to
then
so
that
hold
means
on,
they were free and now
hold
they are
on, hold
slaves.
on, hold on, hold on. Does the passage state yes or no that these were freemen?
The context does, yes.
Okay, the context does. It's gonna say that these people
Yes.
were freemen, right?
The context will show that they were free.
Okay, perfect. Let's go to the verse.
Yes, Deuteronomy 20.
All right, watch this. Yeah, 20 verse what?
Yeah, we're starting in verse 10. This is God
Starting
giving
in verse 10, what's the verse? We need a verse. 10 to
Deuteronomy
18, 10 to
20,
18,
verse 10.
10 to
I
18.
we can even go down
All
to
right, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
20. I don't even care. Here's the context of this. God
No,
is
I don't want the
giving
context. I know I
instructions.
just want to see your argument.
Let me give it.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
God is giving the war instructions here to His people, things that they can and can't do when they're operating in war. And starting in verse 10, when you draw near to a town to fight against it, offer it terms of peace. If it accepts
Mm-hmm.
your terms of peace and it surrenders to you, then all the people shall serve you at forced labor, so slavery. If it does not accept your terms of peace and makes war against you, then you shall besiege it, and when the Lord your God gives it to your hand, you shall put all its males to the sword. You may, however, take your plunder of the women, the children, the livestock, and everything else in the town, all its spoil. You may enjoy the spoil of your enemies, which the Lord your God has given you. Thus you shall treat all the towns that are far from you, which are not the towns of these nations here. But as for the towns of these nations, the peoples that the Lord your God is giving to you as an inheritance, you must not let anything that breathes remain alive. Indeed, you shall annihilate them: the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the
Mm-hmm.
Jebusites, just as the Lord your God has commanded, so they may not teach you to do all the abhorrent things that they do for their gods, and you thus sin according to the Lord your God.
Okay, perfect.
So
Now
what
watch
we
this.
see
Now,
here.
now watch this. No, no, no,
I'm
no.
sorry. Let me make my
Don't
case.
infer.
You asked
Okay,
me to
okay,
make my
okay, okay, okay,
case.
okay. Don't
You asked
infer
me to
though.
make my case.
All right, okay, go,
You
go, go.
asked me to make my case. So I read this, and I see that God is saying that, all right, I have promised you this section of land. The people that are in this section of land, annihilate them. The people outside of that area of land, if you decide to make war against them or if war is made, these are the terms you offer: surrender and be our slaves, so that means free people to not freed people, or we will unalive all the males and just take everybody else and everything else for ourselves anyway. And then, and that's done very specifically because the people that are in the land that God promised them are apparently so terrible that they just need to be annihilated. But everyone else, that's a different situation. So we can see that God is saying that His people can, if they engage in war with them, can take them and make them slaves. We have freed people going to not freed people.
Perfect. I'm so happy you blundered on this topic because remember this law that's in Devarim and Deuteronomy is going to be dealing with the what the theocratic society and the surrounding nations that are talking about what those that are considered to be enemy combatants. Boom.
They're not.
Boom.
They're not enemy combatants.
Enemy.
They're not
Hold on.
enemy
Hold on. Let
combatants
me
if they
finish.
surrender.
Hold on. Hold on. Yeah. If they surrendered. Ah.
That
Key
yeah,
point.
and if
If
and
hold on.
if they
Hold on. Hold
surrender,
on. Hold
that's
on.
when you make
Hold
them
on.
slaves.
Hold on. Hold on. Now this is where you blundered, right? I like when people bring up this verse. It's amazing. Make them
You're
slaves. No,
you're
watch
not
this.
making
Watch.
any sense. But
No,
go
I'll show you.
ahead.
I'll show you.
I can't wait to hear
I'll
this.
show you. I'll show you why you're not making sense. Watch this. True or false? Were there prisons during this time? Did it exist?
Possibly, possibly.
Possibly. The answer is no. They didn't exist.
I don't.
The prison
I
system.
no
Hold
no.
on.
I don't know.
Okay.
I can't state for a fact one way or
Okay.
another. But I think
Well,
it's hard to believe
you can. Yeah,
that
I
there
know it's hard to
wasn't a
believe. I know it's
push.
hard. Hold
Put
on.
that
You're
person
interrupting
in
my
timeout
answer.
for
You're
a minute.
interrupting my answer. You're
You asked
interrupting.
me a question.
Yeah,
I'm
I
the
know
one that's
that.
answering.
It's
You're
just
the one
one question.
interrupting.
It's just one
Hold on.
question. It's only one
You
question
asked
I
me a
asked you.
question. I
It's only
answered,
one
and
question.
then you interrupted the answer.
It's only one question I asked you. Prison
I think that it's
systems.
hard. My answer is
Uh,
that I think it's hard to believe
okay.
that while it may not have been general practice, because we did have other
It's
things
crazy.
where put that person in timeout for a bit did not exist.
Put them in timeout. So a person that believes in
That's basically what
temple.
jail
Oh,
is
okay,
that
okay,
they need to
okay,
be in
okay.
timeout from society.
Hold on. A person that operates in human debaucheries, child sacrifice, um, all the things in which were listed in the book of Leviticus as to why God states that the land was sick regarding all the abominations, bestiality. I don't think you believe in sleeping with animals, do you? Right? So all
Of
these
course not.
things. Okay, exactly.
There's
So
no
when you
consent there.
one second. So the standard, even with that, is given in the Torah. It says all these things in which are antithetical to God's quote unquote mitzvot, his Torah, was why they were evicted out of the land in the first place. Now, these
They weren't
practices,
evicted. They
oh,
were
yes, they
the law
were.
was given to
No,
annihilate them.
hold on. They were removed from the land, and it was a warning that was
Removed
given.
how?
Can you?
Removed how?
You're not letting me finish my
Removed
answer.
how?
You're not letting me finish my answer.
Removed how?
You're not letting me finish my answer.
They
Can I
were
finish my
removed by
answer?
being unalived, right?
Can I finish my
Men, women,
answer?
and children?
Can I finish my
Correct?
answer? Can I finish my
Correct?
answer, please?
Yes.
Can
Answer
I finish my
correct.
answer?
Yes. Answer correct
Can
or
I?
not.
No, because it's my turn to speak on this. You spoke.
Alright.
I went on mute.
Alright,
Let me
fine, fine.
respond.
I'll let you finish, but then I want an answer to my question.
No, no,
Go
no.
ahead.
So you can state your question and respond to what I'm about to say.
Go
So the
ahead. I'm
land, it
waiting.
states in Leviticus that the land was sick because all the things in which God lists for the people not to do was what made the land sick. It was perverted,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, case
Mm-hmm.
in point, the passage that you brought was with respect to those that are enemy or potential enemy combatants. So, in order to save the remnant of those that would be classified as innocent, peace was offered as an initial act in order to bring forth or identify a people or a party that were not going to participate in a military expedition. You've admitted that you are suspending judgment on the matter if jails or if prison systems existed. So, guess what? As a person that is an active enemy combatant and an enemy of Israel and all things that are supposed to be morally good according to the Torah, then guess what? You now become a prisoner. That's it. Now, your problem is like, well, why should these people who are enemy combatants, who believe in bestiality, who believe in sleeping with minors, sleeping with
No, 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 no,
children,
no. You're making a big
unaliving?
mistake here.
No,
You're
I'm
making a
not.
huge mistake.
No, I'm not.
You're mixing up
No,
two different groups of people.
no, I'm not mixing up two different groups of people. I'm identifying the reasons as to why God went and allowed these things in the first place. So when he's bringing judgment upon these nations, it's solely for the purpose because they are acting antithetical to his Torah. It's very simple. Now, I have another question for you. These prisoners, do you believe that are active enemy combatants that seek and destroy not only Israel but other nations and subjugate them? Should they be held liable for their actions?
That's a lot of assuming. Where does it say that these people are
Should
enemy combatants
I
that
asked you a
seek the
question.
destruction of
I
Israel and other
asked you
nations?
a question.
And
Do
I'm asking where are you
do
basing this
you
question in
Oh,
because it's
perfect.
not in the text.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. Amalek. Take Amalek, right? Same book. What did Amalek do to the old, the sick, and the weak when they were just passing through the desert,
Amalek
trying to?
was over what, the Amorites?
Yeah, that would have been it connected to that.
Okay. So this is why I'm saying that you're mixing up two
I'm
different
not.
groups
I'm
of
not
people.
mixing up. I'm
Let
asking
me
regarding like.
explain. Let
No,
me
no, don't. No, no.
explain.
Answer the question. Amalek
I'm
attacked
trying. I'm
Israel.
literally trying to answer the question.
Amalek
I'm
answered.
literally trying to
Did
answer the question,
did
man.
Amalek? Hold
So
on.
these are the
Attack
people
Israel?
that God is talking about. This is the people that God is talking
No,
about.
it's giving an
He says
example
in
to who.
Deuteronomy
Look, he's
20,
running, man.
dude,
This is crazy.
I'm sorry that trying to answer your question is running. If that's what running is to you, I'm so fucking sorry.
No, because
But
it's
listen,
using an example of the types
no,
of people. That's
I'm
why.
tired of hearing you mixing up two different groups of people and just getting the context completely wrong. So I'm trying to explain this to you. In Deuteronomy chapter 20, when we get to verse 17, we see that there is a group of people. The Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hittites, and the Jebusites. Those are the people that are currently in the land that God promised Israel. Those are the people that are supposed to be annihilated. Everyone else outside of that was open to be our forced labor, or we're going to go ahead, unalive all your males, and just take everything anyway. So, no, we are not saying that it is the people that were doing all these horrible things poisoning the land that were being enslaved or
Bro.
quote unquote imprisoned, because the people that were doing all that stuff were told to be annihilated. They were supposed to be no more. Everyone else was up to this subject of battle rule.
Bro, they're the
So
same.
we have no
This is
information
crazy.
that the nation,
All
I'm
right.
almost done,
All right. Go ahead.
we have no information in the Bible that the other nations surrounding these people that God said they could make these war customs with were engaging in these kind of debauchery things.
Yeah. So you blundered, man. It says that the land of
Where?
Canaan. Can I finish? I went on
Where?
mute. I'm gonna show you how you blundered. You just identified the distinction within the tribes. The genius. The Bible identifies them in a universal way synonymously. They're all Canaanites. They're all the same. They're just like a
Oh,
different
okay. I'm
tribe.
sorry. Yeah, you're right. The Bible's very othering. It's very us versus them. It's very
It,
those disgusting its.
Yeah, they're Canaanites. That's it.
You
So
you
when
realize you
so
realize
hold on.
how in
Oh,
your defense of this you have made
can
the
I finish?
entire thing
Can I
even
finish?
worse.
Can I
You
finish?
have
Yeah,
made
no.
this even more
Can I
disgusting and
finish?
immoral.
Can I finish? Yeah, no, brother. Listen, sound bites don't work with me here. You're gonna have to deal with this. Yeah. So
These aren't
look,
sound
just
bites.
hold on,
I'm
hold
sorry
on.
that you're
Gaslighting
scared of the
doesn't work
truth.
here. Gaslighting doesn't work.
I'm
Let's
sorry.
deal with the
How
passage.
I don't think you
So does
understand what gaslighting
Yeah,
means.
gaslighting doesn't work, right?
What
Are
is
the
gaslighting? Hold
Amorites?
on,
Hold
wait,
on,
wait.
real
I'm so
quick.
sick
No,
and
no,
tired of
no,
this.
no, no, no.
Again,
Stop, stop.
whoa,
Let
wait,
me
no,
get to the argument.
whoa, wait,
Let me
renegade.
get to the
Pause
argument.
for a moment,
You're
renegade.
interrupting my
The
time.
whole issue here,
You're
and I will let you get back to it,
No, no, no.
renegade.
But
Just
I
wait
would
a
like to
second,
finish because you blundered on the
please.
passage.
Please let. This is my life. Please let me make this point.
Okay, but you're
Okay, so
interrupting my
listen,
time.
and I will let you have it. Now listen. This is a pause. I'm sick and tired of people using words and not using them what they actually mean. What does gaslight mean? What is being gaslit mean?
Yeah, you're undermining a worldview while denying the facts. That's what you're doing.
That's not what
So,
gaslighting
yeah,
means.
yeah, it is.
Gaslighting
Yeah,
is
it
a
is.
manipulative tact that is done over
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And you
That's
need
gaslighting.
time. No, if this was 6 months down the road when you
You're
and I talk
undermining.
every gaslight, or I'm sorry, renegade. Listen, it
Oh
would be
my God, you're
gaslighting
moving the
me.
argument. Oh
It
my
would
God,
be
this is crazy.
no. I'm so sorry that you are unable to have two conversations at once. Now listen. It would be gaslighting if you and I have been talking for 6 months and I have been trying to
Bro,
manipulate
who
and lie to you this
cares? Let's
entire
deal with the
time to change
passage.
your perspective.
Okay,
You and I
cool.
have talked
You got it.
twice.
Okay,
This is our
cool.
second time talking.
Yeah,
For
man.
you to say that I'm gaslighting you is absolutely
Okay,
ridiculous,
okay,
and
okay,
it
okay.
just
We can
shows that
move.
you're using words that you don't know the definitions to.
Okay, cool, no problem. And
So,
you
and
didn't
and this has been a constant problem in our conversation about slavery,
okay, no,
because you
no,
keep
I
confusing an indentured servant with slavery.